Hey, it's Minute Book Reports, and this is my reading update for Artemis by Andy Weir. And I just read chapters 1 through 4. It took me about an hour and a half, and I really like this story. There's a few things I want to talk about, but I just want to say that I love science fiction, and I'm glad I picked this book. I think the most interesting thing that we see in the first 4 chapters is the introduction of Jazz, who is the narrator. First of all, she's female, which is quite unexpected, and in fact, if you read the book starting in chapter 1, you're never really quite sure if Jazz is male or female. It's never really explicitly said until a lot later in that chapter. So as I was reading this story sort of in first person, because the book opens up with her sort of running back to the base because her suit is leaking and she's gonna run out of oxygen. She barely makes it, of course, but you're kind of wondering what is going on. Who is this person? And we know nothing about the narrator. We know nothing about her, or at the time I sort of thought it may have been a him. And you only get the hint of the name Jazz, and Jazz to me would have been a nickname, so it wouldn't really have explained much. But I'm very excited for a main character narrator who is female. And also the fact that her ethnic background is Saudi. You know, that to me is so unusual in a science fiction story, that the main character is Saudi and is female. I mean, that to me is almost the opposite of most sci-fi stories that I've read, I've seen movies for. So I like the fact that right off the bat, our main character is very different from anything that we've sort of experienced. My view on Saudis has definitely changed, and I can sort of attribute that to my experiences in college. So when I grew up, there weren't really too many people, there were no Saudi people. I never met a Saudi person until I went to college. And then even when I was an undergrad, you know, they were international students, so their English wasn't that great, and I might interact with them maybe at the gym, but they weren't in any of my classes. So the first real time I spent sort of time with Saudi students was when I was actually an instructor. I used to teach ESL, English as a Second Language, in college, and most of the students in my classes were from Saudi Arabia. You know, there were some other international students from Asia, but most of them were from Saudi Arabia and that sort of surrounding area. And it was very interesting because their English was actually pretty good. You know, obviously my Arabic was 0, but they shared a lot about their culture. I was able to share sort of my culture, and it was very interesting sort of exchange of ideas. I'm really glad I got that experience, you know, and that's one thing to be said about college and the whole college experience, is meeting people from different states, if you're in the United States, different areas, different, you know, income levels, backgrounds, whatever, but really meeting students who are from different countries, it changes you. It gives you a bigger global perspective. Now, I'm not an expert in world politics or politics in that part of the world, but it just gave me a more localized perspective from someone who's actually grown up there, who eventually would move back, but really keeps in good communication with that area. So it was very, very interesting to me that we find ourselves in Artemis with Jazz, who is female. She's very young, and she's has a Saudi background. Another thing I also want to bring up about Jazz is the fact that she is seeking money, and that's very blatantly stated, that she just wants money, right? She doesn't really care about relationships. Obviously, her relationship with her dad is not great. Relationship with other men, not great. She just wants money. She wants to escape her life because it's terrible. I mean, she lives in a small coffin, as she calls it. She has to, you know, it's a communal bathroom. She lives in a super low level. It's just not a great living situation. And she just wants money. She has a sort of a financial plan where she needs to get this amount of money so she can finally get a place, and then she won't have to deal with all this stuff. And maybe she can get a different job. You know, that's one of the things I think that this book hopefully will explain a little bit more, is the fact that, you know, she's doing a job that a lot of people look down upon as a porter, as someone who basically picks up deliveries and delivers it. I think a lot of it is because of the potential that she's had. She's very bright. She's extremely smart. And we see that not just in her ability to pick up new sort of technology, new things, but also to problem solve. You know, when she's given the task of trying to figure out how to destroy the harvesters, which is the whole evil plan, she's able to figure it out fairly methodically. You know, she's not just, oh, I'm just gonna go out there and wing it. Like, she actually thinks about all these steps, and she figures out a plan. The fact that she needs to get one of those little robots, and she plants it outside so that it can open the door so that she can go outside and basically moonwalk her way over there when no one's looking, right? So she thinks about all these things, and that's good, you know, and I think that's highly relatable. You know, when you have a character who is extremely, you know, gifted and smart, has a lot of great potential, works hard, I assume, but just you're wondering why they're doing a job that they're doing, you know, and maybe other people feel that way. They're like, my potential is greater than this. Why am I stuck in this job? If only I could do something else. And I think for Jazz, that barrier is money. And so she's willing to do whatever it takes to buy herself out of that. But I have a feeling that it's not gonna work. You know, it's not gonna be a situation where she's able to escape that with money. Just because you're talented, you still gotta work. You know, you still gotta put in the work. And so that was just something that I was sort of slowly seeing as something that I hope comes up in the future in this book, where this is a character who, yes, she's young, female, Saudi, but also she's extremely intelligent and very capable, and people recognize that. They want her to join their guild. They want her to be, you know, a plumber, electrician, a welder, all these different things. But she really wants to be a EVA specialist, or she wants to be in the EVA guild so she can give tours, so she can get money, right? And I think there's something to be said about that for young people when they're choosing careers, because oftentimes we're gravitating towards those things that pay a lot, right? But you may not enjoy it, and you may not be successful at it, you know, but you're still gifted and talented, and that shouldn't stop you from pursuing those other things that you clearly are capable of doing, that you clearly are talented to do. So I feel like this is a big commentary on young people in deciding work, in deciding, you know, what do I do to escape my current situation? It feels like it's gonna take money, but I have a feeling it's gonna be more than that. And the problems that she needs to overcome are probably gonna be relational. I have a feeling that it's gonna be something with her dad or her family. They don't really I don't know if they mentioned her mom, but I just don't think that they're going to be all solved through money. The next thing I want to bring up is Artemis as a tourist destination, and how Jazz sort of views that in not the best light. And you know, she has to pretend to be a tourist so that she can sort of set up what she's going to do in order to destroy the harvesters. And so she goes on the train, and you know, she sees all the tourists, and they're acting all crazy and wild, and she kind of rolling her eyes, and she's like, ugh, you know, these people. And it's, you know, she's looking at them sort of negatively. And you know, I grew up in a tourist destination, and I think that the sentiment oftentimes is, you know, we don't like tourists, and it's very understandable. You know, when you grow up in a certain location, this is your home, and you feel like people are coming to your home and just, you know, doing whatever, and then they're just leaving, right? They're not really there for long-term responsibility. So I understand that. But one of the things that I've also grown to appreciate is that tourists, if that's where you're from, you know, like tourists coming to your home, to your location, they're the ones that are supplying a lot of the money. You know, they're bringing the funds from other parts, other economies where they're from. They're bringing that money and they're depositing it in your economy. If not, you have no money, because basically your home, your destination is a tourist attraction. It is just an entertainment. If no one finds it entertaining or wants to go there, you have no money. There's no product. You as a tourist destination, your product, your commodity is an experience. And so that being said, because it's an experience, it requires people to have to come and spend time. You know, it's not like they can just buy a product and say, okay, here you go. You know, this isn't like you know, the old car manufacturer plants where it's localized to maybe Detroit, and then they just produce all the cars, they have all the jobs locally, and then everyone, you know, it just gets distributed out that way. No one's visiting the car, you know, the car factories to go buy their car. They get them at the dealerships. But when your economy is based on tourism, people coming in, spending money, and then leaving, I find it very sort of challenging that some people might view it as a bad thing. You know, and I looked at Jazz's character and her attitude towards these tourists as I was sort of reading this section of the book, and I had to check myself to make sure that, is that how I feel? You know, do I feel that way about tourists, about visitors who are dumping money into the local economy, really because they want to be here? And by me feeling any sense of resentment towards them, is that helping that experience? You know, if that's what's bringing money into the local economy, do I really want to be pushing out this sort of sense, this feeling of we don't want you here? You know, and it also made me sort of appreciate the fact that where I grew up, it's a place that people want to go. They want to visit. They want to be here. And oftentimes we think to ourselves, I feel, because we live here, because it's a tourist destination, and this is just where our home is, sometimes we can take it for granted. You know, sometimes we don't understand how special it actually is because we just go out the door and it's right there. You know, but for people who, when they go out the door, they see something completely different, you know, they want to be here. And you know, I shouldn't, this is speaking for myself, I shouldn't have this attitude that refuses them to be able to experience the awe and the wonder and the excitement of something that they don't experience on a daily basis. Like, who am I to refuse them of that and say, you know what, that is just so dumb. The fact that you like to look at that mountain, or you like to look at that beach, or that whatever. Like, if I feel that way, I feel like that's kind of rude and disrespectful to them because they don't get to experience that every day. And so all of these things were sort of kind of bouncing around in my mind as I'm watching Jazz sort of not like these tourists, and she just does not want to be there. So those are my thoughts on the first part of Artemis. I'm really enjoying this book, and there's so many more things I wish I could talk about, but I just want to put out some of my thoughts, and I'm going to go back and continue reading. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.